Hey Watchers, today's episode launches us into Season 2 of the show, and we thought what better way to do that than with a notorious interplanetary cult classic. So bring your ray gun, strap on your sword, and grab your football, because it's time for 1980s Flash Gordon. Welcome to the Midnight Watch Podcast, the show where we discuss classic, cult, and modern classic movies.
We're your hosts, Jeremy and Josh Baruto, and we review movies that are at least 10 years old. Fair warning, we're big on spoilers here, straight from the get-go.
We rate these movies in 4 categories. Number 1, the level of impact and success it had when it was released. Number 2, how relevant is it today? Number 3, our own personal enjoyment of this movie. And number 4, is it a midnight watch?
What is a midnight watch? It's a film which completely captures your attention, drawing you in. No matter what time or what part you start watching the movie, you have to finish it.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's been almost 2 months since we last put up a new podcast, and we're excited to get back into it, aren't we?
Yes, absolutely. I can't believe it's been almost 2.5 months, I think.
Yeah, originally we were going to come back in January, but due to my daughter being born and just having too much fun staying at home, I watched a lot of movies while I was home from work for almost 7 weeks. And
Did you say you actually finished your Netflix list?
I knocked out the Netflix queue. Yeah, so the only thing I had in there was Peaky Blinders, and
You didn't watch Peaky Blinders?
No, I haven't been. No, not yet. There's too much good TV out right now. It's all golden television. Sure. And then my father-in-law, he was like, hey, check out HBO Max. And that's a whole other bag there. So I have tons of stuff that I was watching on that. Right. But yeah, so anyways, we decided to wait a couple weeks to drop our first episode. So that way we could come back really strong and have some solid shows for you guys. So once we hit the ground, we could hit the ground running.
Absolutely. And hopefully everybody noticed the new logo that we put out.
Yes. Drawn by myself. No, not really.
Drawn by somebody with a lot of talent who we paid good money.
Good American cash.
Good American cash. One other thing that we'd like to mention, which we kind of haven't done very well, at least at the beginning of our episodes, is please subscribe, please rate us, please review. Especially on Apple Podcasts. That one, for whatever reason, seems to be the benchmark on getting reviews for your podcast. So if you listen on Apple Podcasts, please, we'd love some reviews. That would be very helpful.
We would love some love. So thank you guys so much already, though, for your support from last year. This year, I'm so excited. It's gonna be pretty dope, man. We got lots of good stuff coming up that we're not gonna tell you about because we're still putting it together. But we're super excited. I will say this though. So we have our first interview actually next week with independent filmmaker Alden Olmsted, and so that one's gonna be kicking off several interviews that we're gonna have throughout the year. Maybe do some crossover podcast with other podcasts. And I'm already telling you some of the stuff I said I wasn't gonna tell you. I'm so excited. So,
yeah, that's how excited we are. We cannot keep the cat in the bag.
Absolutely. So,
it's out.
Yeah, we're excited. We're about to throw up some new tattoo ideas, too, for the no, I'm just kidding. I didn't know where I was going with that. It sounded better in my head. It's been 2 months. Okay.
We're a little rusty.
Just a little bit.
We're hitting the ground running, but it's, the wheels are squeaky. We're getting it going.
Yeah,
I just mixed my metaphors there. We're hitting the ground running, but our shoes are untied.
We're hitting the ground running with our squeaky wheels. Our wheels are running. Okay. All right. Well, let's jump into it. Did you want to say anything else before we do?
Nope. I'm ready, man. I've been waiting 2.5 months to do this.
2.5 months. Okay. Coming back in a flash. That's right. Flash Gordon. This is our first movie for this year. It came out in 1980, directed by Mike Hodges. Screenplay by Lorenzo Semple. The score was by Queen, and the budget was $35 million. The box office was $27 million. So this was not really a hit. No. Let me read off the cast real quick. I'm excited to talk about this movie. So we got Sam J. Jones, Brian Blessed. I should have read these before I recorded this. Ornella Moody, Max von Sydow, Melody Anderson, Timothy Dalton, Topol, Peter Weingart and Richard O'Brien, who I think is most famous for the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Josh, where were you the first time you saw this movie?
Well, Jeremy, I'm glad you asked.
Where and when?
Where and when? I probably watched this movie, it's probably been 6 or 7 years ago. Once again, it was with my old movie club, the Sacramento International Film Society. Just a bunch of work friends, and we would watch movies together on Sundays in between working. And so, yeah, I forget what the theme was that day. It might have just been old sci-fi or something like that. I'm not sure, but we watched it, and it was very enjoyable as a group movie for sure.
I could totally see that. Absolutely. First time I watched this, last night. It was
really.
I've never seen this movie. It's one of those movies that is like directly in my wheelhouse, and I just never saw it. Like, I don't think any of my friends have seen this movie either. I'm not sure. Yeah, it just.
But you definitely you had known about this movie forever, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, no, at least for the last 15 years. I just. Yeah, and then of course, I'll say right off the bat at the top. Wow,
right off the bottom of the bat.
Okay, I'm just gonna mix and match all day today. Apparently,
mix metaphors whole episode if we can. Every time we mix a metaphor, everybody take a drink.
Take a drink, or anytime we say Maverick. No, I'm just kidding.
How many beers have you had already?
Oh man, no, it's not beer. It's sleep deprivation. I just had a kid.
Oh, that's right. You have a very small child in the house.
Yes,
I remember those.
Awesome.
I remember those days.
The salad, the post salad days, I guess. Anyways, best part about this movie for me personally, hands down, is the soundtrack. It's a killer soundtrack by Queen.
Absolutely.
I think it's predominantly one of the best soundtracks by a rock band ever done. It's just so good, and I think it's better than a lot of the stuff Queen put out in the 80s. It's really, really good.
Yeah, that's very solid. And it was one of the first ones too. I think The Who's Tommy might have been officially the first movie to have, the band. Well, that's a special situation, but it was a rock band that did this, the music for the movie, which was a movie of their album. But anyways,
I think that falls under a little bit different category.
Right. But I think technically it was still the first, but this one for sure, having something unrelated to the band, and they just wrote music for the movie.
Yes. I mean, the theme song, so good. Like, I literally been listening to it all day. Anytime I take a break, then I'm just like, Flash, and they're like, it's pretty great because my coworkers have no idea what I'm doing, but they're used to it by now. Right.
If they've seen the movie Ted, then they might be familiar with it. Because they use the heck out of it there, which was a big part of the plot too, which is pretty sweet.
And I think that's one of the only other movies that Sam Jones is in. His career did not go anywhere big wise. And
he was in plenty of other stuff, but nothing terribly noteworthy that I'm aware of.
Right.
Please comment if you're a huge Sam Jones fan. Blow us up on how much we're not honoring.
Tell us how wrong we are.
GOAT.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I don't know if anybody says Sam Jones is the GOAT, but if somebody does, let us know.
There's a Sam Jones super fan out there.
That's
somewhere.
True.
That's not his mom.
He's pretty old. I don't know if his mom's alive.
Well, that's true.
It's a little dark. Anyways.
Well.
Sorry, Sam's mom. Yeah, so anyways, with this right here, there's so much to talk about. This is definitely the definition of a cult classic. I can totally see this movie bombed when it first came out, and then it's grown such a cult following. I mean, obviously Ted, that movie, the writers of that movie, Seth MacFarlane, are big fans of Flash, and so that was really cool. They got to actually kind of do that stuff.
I think it was it Edgar Wright, the director Edgar Wright? I think he said this is his favorite movie of all time. Was it him?
No, that was in Raising Arizona, which is happens to be our next episode.
What?
Yeah, for real.
How'd we slip that in there?
I don't know. Yeah, okay, let's jump in. Let's get some information here. So actually, it's funny. Pink Floyd was originally the first choice to do the music for this, but then I can't remember if they turned it down or somebody else turned it down, and then they asked Queen if they wanted to do it, and Queen was super excited. They were like, absolutely. Because if you listen to some of the lyrics from their albums, they're not popular, super popular songs. They're totally into fantasy, and different things like that. I mean, they're just as weird as Rush. So it's pretty cool. Like that, it totally made sense. I didn't realize they did the entire soundtrack. I thought they just did the theme song. So
Oh yeah. Other than the like orchestral scoring, they brought in a
oh, that was by Howard Blake who did that.
yes, they brought him in for that. But as far as all the other, I mean the synth stuff and then the actual any of the songs, songs, and obviously all that sweet electric guitar. Man, Brian May's guitar tone on this album was so rocking. It was just chunky, basically 70s kind of distortion, but yeah, I loved it.
Let me do some info dumping real quick, and then we'll get into discussing this. One name that you may not associate with this movie, but actually dramatically influenced it, is George Lucas. George Lucas was a huge fan of the 1930s serials, and that clearly you can see that in Star Wars, because Star Wars is a direct homage to like John Carter,
Dune.
Yep. Oh yeah, Dune. He even got he got accused of ripping off Dune, which let's face it, he did. And
he did.
Yeah, and then
it's a popcorn version, or sorry, a bubblegum version of Dune,
which is funny.
There's nothing wrong with that, but it is.
So Star Wars is that version of Dune, and then Flash Gordon is that version of Star Wars, because there's like no story in this movie, and it's very much 1930s. Like they definitely make it like a 1930s movie. But then it's weird though. It's 1930s, and then they ramp up the sexuality in it, and so it's
big time. I know. I couldn't believe how overtly sexual certain parts of the movie were. I'm like,
yeah,
this is PG.
I was like feeling awkward, because I was like, it's super campy, and then all of a sudden it's really sensual, and I'm like, wait, okay, guys, like choose what you're going with, figure out what's the mood. And that was a problem I had with this movie, was actually the pacing, and then the mood of the movie kept flipping back and forth. I felt like they didn't really land into a solid pacing until like the last 20 minutes of the movie, unfortunately.
Right.
But okay.
But I do gotta interject. Surprisingly, Roger Ebert actually had a favorable review of this movie, which shocked me.
Roger
I think
Ebert,
because he kind of got it. He kind of got what it was.
Right.
As far as it's totally a tribute to these old serials. It's a little funny. He just enjoyed it for being a fun ride. He wasn't expecting it to be mind-blowing special effects like Star Wars, which was, just a couple years before.
Right.
So he took it for what it was and enjoyed the old school effects, especially at the time.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I gotta wait on that. But we'll talk about special effects.
We're so excited. We're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah. Okay. So, so George Lucas actually was trying to get the rights to make a Flash Gordon movie, and he wasn't able to get the rights because he was still pretty much unknown, because he had done THX 1138, and then he did American Graffiti, which was decently received. And so that since he couldn't get the rights, then he just wrote Star Wars instead, and then that just took off, and it was obviously a massive hit, the #1 movie period when it came out. It was just a huge hit. And so, which is funny then, because then they were like, oh, we've got this Flash Gordon character that George Lucas was all about. So then they decided, hey, let's actually make the movie. So without George Lucas making Star Wars, they wouldn't have never made Flash Gordon, which is kind of interesting. Also, too, I was trying to read like where it is, but there was like 8 different directors that they went through. This movie went through a lot of issues being made, and unfortunately you can tell that when you're watching the movie. There's a lot of issues. There's 2 different types of crews. There was an American crew and an Italian crew, and they couldn't communicate with each other very well. So the American crew knew that it was being corny, and the Italian crew thought that it was being shot serious. And so there's like that weird flux back and forth.
What's your problem? Why are you always laughing?
You Americans, he was an idiot.
You stupid American.
Which is kind of funny though, because I was thinking like Sergei Leone, like when he was making his movies, I
couldn't believe he was approached to make this movie. They tried to get him.
Right. Absolutely. But with his movies, though, he always worked with an international crew. Like, he'd have plenty of different people speaking different languages, and he made masterpieces. So it's pretty interesting. Oh, yeah. Okay. Director Mike Hodges referred to the production problems that plagued the film. He's called it the only improvised $27 million movie ever made. So they didn't know how to end this movie. Like, they literally, like, went to end it, and they didn't know what to do. And so then Sam... he just jumped and he was like, yay. And that's the whole famous, like, yeah thing. And he just improvised that. He also did all of his choreography and all of his own stunts, which you can really tell that sometimes. And so, like, I gave him props for doing that, but the choreography was not that good. But at the same time, man, my hands are so tied on this movie. Like, I'm so conflicted with this. Okay, let me drop just a little bit more info.
All right.
Let's see here. Yeah, one thing I thought was interesting was producer Dino De Laurentiis. He wanted Kurt Russell to play Flash Gordon, which at this time, Kurt Russell was not known as an action star. That wasn't until the next year when Escape from New York came out.
Right.
Which, hey, somebody reviewed that last year. They should check it out. You know?
They did, yes.
Yeah.
If you'd like to check out Escape from New York, episode
4.
I don't remember.
Episode 4.
There. Oh, man. I'm glad somebody did their homework.
I did. I was there. But yeah, so anyways, Kurt Russell, though, turned it down because he thought the character lacked personality, which is 100% right.
Yes.
And let's see here. Oh, Brian Blessed, who played Prince Voltan. Anyways, Vince Voltan. Anyways, he was a huge fan of Flash Gordon, like growing up, and that character, Voltan, was his favorite character. So that was kind of like a dream come true for him to do that, which that's pretty awesome. That reminds me of Mortal Kombat with Christopher Lambert playing Raiden, where he's just a big fan.
Oh, yeah.
So
right.
that made the movie a little bit more special. I didn't know this.
Speaking of, we also covered Mortal Kombat last year, episode 1.
Episode 1, yes. Check that out.
It's probably pretty rough to listen to, but give it a listen anyways.
Yeah. Click on it as many times as you want.
There you go.
But one thing I was surprised and finally realized that Max von Sydow I thought was like this serious Academy Award distinguished actor, and he's a really good actor, but I didn't realize he's in so many different sci-fi movies. Like the guy who actually, rest in peace, he passed away last year. He was 90 years old. I didn't know that. So, but he never retired. He acted literally up until he passed away.
Wow.
That dude was a legend. He had so many different roles he was in Star Wars, Strange Brew. Like, you look at almost any sci-fi movie back in the 80s, and there's a 50% chance he was in it at some part.
Even in the 2000s when we covered
Minority Report.
Yeah. Episode 3.
Man, this is a throwback episode. This is a retro episode to our episodes.
We're plugging season 1 here, folks.
Yeah. Okay, one last thing about trivia before we just dive into it was the screenplayer, Lorenzo Semple. He was pressured actually to make the movie funny, even though he wanted to actually make it serious because he liked the character. And to be honest, I think it would have been a much better movie if they made it serious.
Yeah.
I just think that they probably would have picked a different actor to play Flash Gordon, or they would have just given him something to do. He really didn't have a lot to do. I can't even comment on his acting because the dialogue was so bad. Like, it was just you can't fault him for that. But
I agree.
Yeah, but anyways, the screenwriter was pressured to make the film funny. And so there's different jokes that I couldn't tell if they were trying to be funny or if it was just funny. And then like there were some jokes where I'm like, oh, that's actually like a legit joke. Like when he runs into his girlfriend at the end and he's like, she says something and he's like, yeah, we'll tell this story to our kids. And she's like, oh, I accept. And then he gets in the fight right afterwards and she's like, don't die. I just got engaged. Like that's obviously supposed to be funny, but that's like literally one of the only jokes where I was like, that's actually supposed to be a joke. Like, don't get me wrong. I laughed really hard at this movie. There were several times where I was laughing really hard at this movie. Oh, and then one more thing too about this, man, one more. So there's a little bit of controversy about this film. Sam Jones was actually, a lot of the different people were actually signed up to make 2 more movies because this was supposed to be the next big blockbuster. Right. And so when it bombed, then of course their contracts were broken. And so he was really mad at the producer, Dino. And so he actually walked off set like near the end of filming. And so when they came back to do reshoots, like every movie has reshoots, they had to do a double. And then he didn't edit his own voice. So his actual voice in the movie is dubbed by a different actor. And so
that's crazy.
It is. I didn't even realize it. But up until literally last year, nobody knew who actually dubbed his voice. Like even he didn't know. And so it turns out that it was actually Peter Marinker, who actually, he was a voice actor on some of the Flash Gordon cartoons. And so he actually confirmed it last year that he was the person who did the dubbing.
That's cool.
Pretty interesting. Apparently Sam Jones might have been kind of hard to work with. He kept getting in fights apparently. Oh. Anyways, all right. Let's jump into this. Josh, I know that I've been hogging the mic. What are your thoughts on this movie?
Well, I should probably hit the synopsis first real quick because
dang.
just because I mean, It's one of these movies where if you just read the basic synopsis, there's a bad guy and a good guy has to go clean up the mess. There's not a lot going on as far as that kind of a description. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is there's a bit of a long-winded description from Wikipedia, who we, good old Wikipedia, our third member,
Wow.
every episode.
Is this our new thing where we actually remember where were we when we first saw this, but then I forget to do the synopsis?
It could be. We got to have some kind of a weird thing that happens every season.
I guess so. All right, let's hear it.
I'm going to jump in here. This is a pretty thorough breakdown of the movie. So if you haven't seen it, this will help you understand what we're talking about. To relieve his boredom, Emperor Ming the Merciless of the planet Mongo declares that he will play with and destroy Earth by remotely causing natural disasters. On Earth, New York Jets football star Flash Gordon boards a small plane where he meets travel agent Dale Arden. Mid-flight, the cockpit is hit by a meteorite and the pilots are lost. Flash takes control and manages to crash land into a greenhouse owned by Dr. Hans Zarkov. Zarkov believes the disasters are being caused by an extraterrestrial source pushing the moon towards Earth and has secretly constructed a spacecraft that he plans to use to investigate. Zarkov's assistant refuses to go, so Zarkov lures Flash and Dale aboard. The rocket launches, taking them to Mongo, where they are captured by Ming's troops. The trio is brought before Ming, who orders Dale to be prepared for his pleasure. Flash tries to resist, but he is overpowered. Ming orders Zarkov be reprogrammed and Flash executed. Ming's beautiful daughter, Princess Aura, seduces Ming's surgeon into saving Flash, who she is in love with. As they escape, Flash sees Zarkov being brainwashed by Clytus, the metal-faced head of the secret police. Aura and Flash flee to Arborea, kingdom of Prince Baron. En route, Aura teaches Flash to use a telepathic communicator to contact Dale. He lets her know he is alive, and it's a pretty goofy and awkward part of the movie.
I wrote down. Yeah, I have to talk about that. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, here we go. Continuing on. He lets her know he is alive. Meanwhile, Aura starts kissing him. Dale is locked in Ming's bedchamber, but encouraged by Flash, she escapes. Clytus sends Zarkov to intercept Dale, who tells him and Clytus that Flash is alive. Zarkov then reveals he resisted the brainwashing and escapes Mingo City with Dale. They're quickly captured by Prince Voltan's Hawkmen and taken to Sky City. Aura and Flash arrive at Arborea. Aura asks the prince to keep Flash safe. A distrustful Baron, in love with Aura, agrees not to kill Flash, but then forces him to perform a deadly ritual. Baron and Flash take turns sticking their hands into a hollow stump with a giant scorpion-like wood beast inside. When Flash has to take an extra turn, he pretends to be stung as a distraction and escapes. Baron follows, but they are both captured by the Hawkmen. Clytus informs Ming that Gordon's alive and is given authority to find the responsible party. Aura returns and is taken prisoner and tortured by Clytus and General Kala. They force her to confess, and Ming orders her banished to the ice moon Phrygia once his wedding to Dale has taken place. Meanwhile, Flash and Baron are taken to Sky City, where Flash and Dale are briefly reunited. Flash is forced to fight Baron in a death match, but Flash instead saves Baron's life, causing Baron to join him. Clytus arrives, and Flash and Baron kill him. Knowing this will bring retribution, Voltan orders the Hawkmen to evacuate, leaving Baron, Flash, Dale, and Zarkov behind. Ming's ship arrives, and he orders Baron, Zarkov, and Dale to be taken aboard. Ming is impressed with Flash and offers him lordship over Earth in exchange for loyalty. Flash refuses, and Ming gives the order to destroy Voltan's kingdom along with Flash. Flash finds a rocket cycle and escapes before Sky City is destroyed. Flash contacts Voltan, who is hiding on Arborea, and they plot an attack on Mingo City. Flash pretends to attack Mingo City alone on his rocket cycle. General Kala dispatches the war rocket Ajax to kill Flash, but the Hawkmen ambush and seize the rocket. Meanwhile, Princess Aura overpowers her guard and frees Baron and Zarkov from the execution chamber. Flash and the Hawkmen attack Mingo City in Ajax, and Kala activates the defense as Ming's and Dale's wedding begins. Mingo City's lightning field can only be penetrated by flying Ajax into it at a suicidal speed. Flash volunteers to stay at the helm to ensure success and enable the Hawkmen to invade the city. Baron and Zarkov enter the control room and confront Kala, who refuses to cooperate. She attempts to kill Zarkov, but Baron shoots and kills her. There we go. Baron tells Zarkov to hold the fort while he heads to Sector Alpha 9 to deactivate the lightning field. Zarkov tries, but is unable to deactivate the shield from Kala's control room. Baron fights through Ming's guards and gets to Sector Alpha 9 and deactivates the lightning field before Ajax hits it. Flash flies the rocket ship into the city's wedding hall, and the ship's bow impales Ming. He drags himself off the rocket nose, seriously wounded, and Flash offers to spare his life if he will stop the attack on Earth. Ming refuses and attempts to use his power ring on Flash, but his power falters and nothing happens. He then aims the ring at himself and is seemingly vaporized by its remaining power, seconds before the counter to the destruction of Earth reaches 0. A huge victory celebration ensues. Baron and Aura become the new leaders in Ming's place. Baron names Voltan the leader of their armies. Flash, Dale, and Zarkov discuss returning to Earth. Zarkov says he doesn't know how they will get back, but they'll try. Baron tells them all they're welcome to stay, but Dale says she's a New York City girl, and it's now too quiet around Mongo. The final frame shows Ming's ring being picked up by the hand of an unseen person. Ming's evil laugh echoes as the ending credits roll. Following the credits, the text, "The End," is shown on the screen before a question mark is appended, which makes it a cliffhanger ending.
So, before I forget, I didn't realize The Matrix was inspired by this movie, actually.
Really?
Yeah. Remember that scene where, what's her name? The main girl, Marley, what's her name?
Dale?
Dale, yeah, that's what I meant. Anyways, yeah, when she all like switches outfits with that one girl, and then she's running away with the gun, and then
right,
she's
doing flips and
does a full-on cartwheel in front of this guard, and then picks up her gun and shoots him, and it's so pointless, but it was so funny though, because it was just like, I love the people's heart behind this movie. And so,
oh my gosh. Yeah. There's so much effort put into it. I mean, this is definitely a Deadpool maximum effort situation.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was really impressed with the special effects in this movie. I thought it was cool because they did a lot of they built a lot of large sets. And
yeah,
I thought it was
so much practical effects.
I loved it. I thought it was great. I liked how weird everybody looked. The only thing I thought looked terrible was the snake people. They were just like really bad looking. But I mean, for the time and everything, like it's just I enjoyed it. I thought that was really cool. Okay, anyway.
I feel like this movie would have been pretty awesome 20 years earlier. If it came out in 1960, I think this movie would have been huge because everything was pretty spot on except for the music. I mean, just using those old school sets and whatnot, and the fact, with being color, all of that would have been amazing. Because to me, it kind of was like The Wizard of Oz in space, as far as all the colorful sets and costuming. So yeah, I feel like it was just definitely, and even what some people when they're critiquing it, this it was pretty straight up based off of the serial in the 30s.
Yes.
So it has a lot of that vibe going still, which still would have probably worked better in the 60s.
Right.
Anywho.
I think anything after post Star Wars, so especially so close to Star Wars, I watched the trailer for this and it looks really exciting, especially with the theme song playing over the trailer. It's just like, oh, this looks like this is going to be like an action-packed movie. There's actually not a lot of fighting in this movie. Flash Gordon, he sucks. He's just, I know, he doesn't fight.
He's just a friendly, genuine dude. Like,
oh yeah, you're all-American hero.
I know. He's just so nice in this movie. I mean, there's really only one scene where he's kind of fighting, at the beginning, really.
Oh, I guess
the football scene.
When he kills Clytus, actually, that was actually a cool scene because then, like, you see, I love it where he keeps bringing up, like, hey, why don't we team up? He keeps saying that. And then he finally is like, let's team up and defeat them. And then when Clytus shows up, who actually, I thought Clytus looked really cool. Like I
did too.
I liked.
He was probably one of my favorite costumes out of all of it.
I agree. And his voice, Peter Wingard, I thought that was Jeremy Irons at first, but Peter Wingard, his voice was perfect. But that whole scene though, when he like Flash tackles him, I was just like, oh, Flash is like legit gonna kill this guy, and it's just funny. I also like they call it a rocket cycle. It's more like a rocket jet ski.
Right. I know. Is that a rocket Sea-Doo you're riding there?
See, do. Yeah. Once I saw Ted, which they totally like referenced this hardcore and stuff. I was waiting for this scene, and so when he got on, and I was like, excited. I was like, yes, there it is.
Right.
So, yeah. It was pretty awesome though. So Max von Sydow, his costume weighed over 70 pounds. So he literally would be sitting down until they were like roll camera, and he would stand up and act for a couple minutes, and then he'd have to sit back down. I don't know why they did that though. Like, I know that the girl who plays Jessica inside The Witcher, her outfit in the last episode is like made out of rope, so that was like 40 pounds. But 40 pounds is different than 70 pounds.
Yeah, so, that's a lot. And that's just kind of ridiculous. You think they could have painted some lighter materials, but yeah, that's like authentic gear that he was wearing.
Very authentic, absolutely. Oh man. Okay, tell me what you thought about this movie.
Man, well, I mean, that was kind of my opening thoughts. Oh, so let's start with Queen, because that is I've known about the Queen soundtrack even before I saw the movie. I mean, that you just can't help. There's an old Five Iron Frenzy song lyric where he references having the Flash Gordon soundtrack. Oh, okay. And so I probably heard about that first in in 2000 or 99. It was a long time ago.
Which, by the way, Five Iron Frenzy, their new album literally dropped like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. It was really good. It's pretty good too.
Really good.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anyways, back to Flash.
So I kind of feel like Queen definitely helps the movie at times, like a lot.
Yeah.
And then there's other times where they just have some synthesizer kind of background noise, if you will. It's not even really music. And I feel like it kind of hurts it at that point because it's a little bit too modern for the time. It's, they're kind of going for that Carpenter-esque kind of ambiance, if you will. But yet, because the sets and everything look so 20, even 50 years behind, I feel like it hurts it at that point, where that's where the orchestration, the traditional orchestration, whenever that kicks in, is probably a little more appropriate there. So yeah, I'm a little, as much as I love the actual songs that Queen wrote for the movie, I love those a lot, but then there's just other parts where they're just, like I said, they're just doing some synth kind of stuff, and it just doesn't quite do it. But for sure, their songs are amazing. And like the big fight at the end with the Hawkmen, when they're taking over the War Rocket Ajax, is a dope. Huh?
You mean when they're trying to? Because apparently
when they're attempting to, yeah, it's pretty embarrassing.
Apparently, it's everybody on Ajax is a crack shot, and they can shoot moving targets.
Boy, those Star Wars stormtroopers could take a lesson from Ming's military.
Apparently, the palace guards inside the Ming's palace are a little slow on the uptake, but the people in Ajax, though, like, they're crack shots.
Man, they're amazing. Yeah, they're dropping those Hawkmen all over the place. Right. But anyways, the song that's playing during that part is awesome.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, it's super cool.
I think that's where it really kicks off. Like, once he literally rolls up on the jet ski and he's like does the fake out at the end.
Yeah.
From then on, the movie to me is fantastic. Except I was disappointed there wasn't a showdown between him and Ming. Like, Ming's just like hit. Yeah. I mean, I get because he's wearing 70 pounds, like, that'd be really hard. They did have a showdown written in the script, but they kept changing the script, like, on the day that they were there. And so I was a little disappointed because everything else is so by the numbers with this film.
Right. Yeah, and the ending is definitely the most chaotic. What?
Right. He literally
kind of the way it wraps up.
He crashes the wedding, and then that's the movie. That's just like, okay.
Right. It's definitely rough. The rest of it, like you said, is very old school Hollywood, by the numbers.
Yes. So,
which can make it a little slow at times. Which I got to say, that's one of my biggest problems with the movie, is that I kind of had a harder time. I was surprised. I really enjoyed watching it back with my friends, back in the day, and it was harder to rewatch it, not just because I knew what was going to happen, but there's some really painfully slow parts, and it just kind of drags at time. And it's definitely one of those movies where it's a lot of fun with a group because you're laughing at all these different things and pointing out things together. And it's just like certain old horror, or even horror movies in general, are a lot of times really fun. One of the things I love about horror movies is it's such a good group movie situation most of the time.
Yeah.
Just, pointing things out and laughing and trying to, even if you're being scared or getting scared, you're kind of, I don't know, you have the camaraderie that you're, laughing and pretending not to be scared together, but when you are. So it's just kind of that same thing, but also with old B movies. I love watching old B movies with people too. Kind of like Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh, yeah. This movie definitely, I think because it's strongly based off the 1930s serials and but real quick, the opening, okay, I just want to say this, I think the best part of the movie actually is the credits. Like whoever edited that opening sequence together with the song from Queen, you see like the old cartoons or like the old comic strip, the way it's just edited together, it's really exciting.
It is
really, really cool. And I thought the movie was going to, I went into this movie not knowing it was supposed to be super cheesy. I thought that like the filmmakers were trying to make a serious film. I didn't realize that they were trying to make it campy. And so it threw me off when the first thing that was like, oh, wait a minute, this might be campy, what like on purpose campy, was when Zarkov was just over the top. He was just like, I'm going to save the world. And he's like threatening to shoot the guy. He's like,
but like you said, because of the kind of mixed signals directing with the two different crews, basically, or just with the Italian actors and crew versus the American actors and crew, or British. There's a lot of British actors too. But anyways, just those mixed signals of, you really couldn't tell, like, is this really supposed to be campy? I mean, you kind of feel like it is, but then there'd be these moments where there's some really kind of solid delivery in a serious way of these lines, and some of these actors are, really very good actors. I mean, Max Sado is amazing. I actually enjoyed most of the performances in this movie. Just, yes, they're cheesy lines. Yes, they look ridiculous. It's a ridiculous scene and setting, but the way they're delivering their lines and whatnot, it's pretty awesome. I mean, Timothy Dalton, he's a great actor.
I know. Yeah, he's actually he's way up there, and so he's seeing him in the movie. That's why I was like, oh, Timothy Dalton's in this movie. It's supposed to be more of a serious movie, and it's probably going to be campy now. But no, like they were trying to make it campy back then. So I was just,
but it's mixed because they'll go into something where it's serious, and you're like, well, I was kind of just getting in the groove, like it's silly. So I feel like absolutely, and you said this earlier, if they had made it all serious or all funny, like all tongue in cheek, then I think either one would have made it better than it was. Because otherwise, you really have to know what you're getting into, I think, to fully appreciate what it is. Because I can see where, people were kind of let down. Like, it had pretty decent numbers when it first came out, but it fell off quick. Like, I think it just got around real quick that, it's not that great.
I would have gone and seen this back in 1980s after watching the trailer. I legitimately got excited after watching the trailer. That's why I was like, man, we should review Flash Gordon. Like, I haven't watched that. And because it's a great trailer and it looks exciting, high adventure. This is totally a sci-fi fantasy film. It's not science fiction. And I love that. You don't get a lot of those movies that are big. But this movie at the time was a big budget movie. And
it's so crazy. I feel like it is an absolute like big budget turd. Mm-hmm. Like they threw so much money into this terrible movie. It's crazy. I mean, I know it's conflicting. On one side, they definitely made to some people who are making the movie, they made the movie they wanted to make.
Right.
Was it worth all that money and effort? You're like, I don't see that. But I don't know. It did well in Italy and England. I mean, they got it.
Well,
I guess.
I'm glad that they enjoyed it. So the dialogue. Okay, so the things that made me just bust out loud laughing was Sam Jones, man, is just, his character of Flash Gordon is just like, he's just such a solid person, good person through and through. And I was like getting Star Trek vibes of like, this is what humans are supposed to be like. But then he just say these like dumbest lines, and it was hilarious. Because like the part where Dale is like, Ming is like messing with her, and he's like, she thinks that he's seducing her, and she's like totally excited because she's under the power of the ring. And then he turns the ring off, and then she looks at Flash and she's like, what happened? And Flash is like, I don't know, but it was pretty sensational. And I was like, what? I did not expect that line. It was just
well, it's two things. First, you're not expecting this like bizarre like sexual kind of
right. She's
you
like
know, esque
miming
moves.
making out with this person, and it's like
Right.
"Ew," and you're like,
Right.
I feel really conflicted here. And
Right, and then he says that line, and you're like, oh my.
you're like, oh wow,
crap.
okay, all American horn dog. So
I know.
like,
It's like this is a Dumb and Dumber moment here.
oh yeah, and then the other part, dude, when he's communicating with the telepathic device or whatever, the communicator, and he's talking to Dale, but then the girl in the cockpit starts making moves on him, and he's like, "Oh,
Dude, I
she's
know.
so hot," and she's
Right.
like, "Excuse me," and he's like, "Oh, I shouldn't be talking," and it's so dumb because then he's just like, "Hey, you can hear my thoughts over." And I'm like, is this a ham radio?
I know.
He has a ham radio on the freaking rocket cycle.
Right.
And
Just so yeah, I mean, some of this stuff is absolutely hilarious because
It
of how
is.
bizarre it is, or just doesn't fit. Yeah, you're definitely right. Where it's kind of conflicting, and I mean, yeah, just 100%. I keep coming back to this is an amazing group movie. If any of
Oh,
you
yeah.
haven't seen this movie, and you like to watch kind of bad movies, and I say that with love in my heart for this
right.
movie.
Oh, we love bad movies. Yeah.
Please get a group of friends together, you know, have some food, some booze, whatever you need, and just it's going to be a good time watching this movie.
I totally agree. This is probably, honestly, I think this is like the number one campiest like cult classic movie that we've reviewed so far. I think.
I think so.
it's
yeah.
just-
I
it's
mean,
like-
Doctor Strangelove is
That's a
is
different type
weird
of
cult
cult classic.
Exactly. It's still a cult classic, and it's definitely a legit cult classic. But this is like, for sure, that type of cult classic where it's not a great movie.
No,
And yet
like-
there's a lot of love for it.
Yeah, Doctor Strangelove is like very tongue in cheek, very smartly written, smartly acted.
Right.
And this movie is not well written, and I can't blame the actors for what they do.
Right.
Like they,
Right. Well, it's like I said earlier, a lot of the acting is good for what they did.
yeah,
They just weren't, they just weren't given anything good to work with.
Oh man. Oh yeah. Like I gotta drop a few more scenes from this movie. Like the part
Do it.
when Flash Gordon he dies, and then but the doctor injected him before he died. So apparently he's like not dead, but he's sort of dead. And then
Right.
they show like the entombing room, and you see the tomb, and his name. It says Flash Gordon. Is freaking the font is the same
I know.
font from the poster of the movie,
Right.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And then when the
It's
girl,
like, is this branding for the toy
know.
line that's going to come out or something?
I mean, I'm sure it was because He-Man and Masters of the Universe came out,
Right.
and
Well,
all
there
this
was
stuff.
there was a toy line.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
I'm gonna find some pics of it and try to put it on Instagram. But yeah, there's an actual toy line, which, I mean, it looks like the Star Wars type of toys that were out at the same time period.
Probably worth a lot now for sure. Anyways, yeah. Then the girl like brings him. The doctor revives him, and the girl kisses him, and he wakes up, and he's like, "Oh, where am I?" And then she's like, "I wrote it down. I got it right." She goes, "Back from the dead. I've saved you." And then he like flips out of the
Right.
what is it with the crib where he's sitting in, and he's like, "My God, how?" And he's so over the top.
I know. It's like a Bruce Campbell moment.
Oh my gosh, it was because she plays it like kind of more, and that's the thing we keep coming back to, the conflicting tones. It's like some
Right.
people play it serious, and then he says these way over the top lines that come out of nowhere, and I was like
Right.
busting up laughing. I don't know though.
She's a pretty famous Italian actress, for the time too. I mean, so I think she's
Yeah.
pretty respected, and
They have a lot of
I mean,
great
she-
actors in this movie.
they do. I mean, and even her lines, which a lot of what she was given to do, which kind of silly and over, like we said, over sexualized.
Not
but
to
I mean,
slut
she did
shame,
it.
but that's her character in the movie.
She
and
did.
has-
She did a great job, and especially that. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm.
slow clap. She didn't have a lot to do. Well, what she had, she did well. Again, it's the writing. Like her character was just not well written at all.
Yeah.
It was not good. Yeah, it's just nobody had a good character in this movie. Even Timothy Dalton, after Flash saves him, and he's like, "You saved me. I'll follow you." And I was like,
Yeah, I know.
was
The
like,
turn of heart is so like.
it's so fast.
Okay.
And even Timothy Dalton, Timothy Dalton couldn't save that line. I mean, it's that bad.
Right.
And oh man, if you want camp, this is camp. Okay, I gotta say this line too. Like another thing, just the first. Okay, so Timothy Dalton and the girl that you were just talking about, I forgot her name, Aurora or whatever, Aura.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly they're playing fast and loose in space, and so she is supposed to be his girl. And so she's telling him that because she's attracted to Flash Gordon, so she wants to save Flash Gordon. The first scene you see of them together, you get the idea that they're supposed to be together. And then the first scene you see them together, she like kisses him really long and hard, and she's like, wait for me, I'll be back. And his first line to her is, "Lying bitch."
Right. I know, it's like so harsh.
And I was like, where did that come from? Like,
I know, it's like, dang, there's some hate there.
I know. I was just like, what the heck? And then later, like, she shows up and he's like, "Oh, you came," and he's so excited, and they live happily ever after. It's just bad writing, man, bad writing. And I gotta
throw in there too with Brian Blessed, the Prince Voltan, the leader of the Hawkmen. I mean, such a great character. I mean, just larger than life. He kind of reminds me of Gimli from Lord of the Rings. Just big, overbearing, huge laugh. And so there's a quote where, or one of the lines he says, "Gordon's alive." And apparently it's like one of the most in English or in British cinema, it's one of the most quoted lines to this day. Yes. It might be the most quoted line. And so they they really liked it over there.
That's actually a cool thing they do in this movie, though, is since it's based off of 1930s, like obviously the comics and the serials. In the serials, like Flash Gordon has to look like he died 12 times for each chapter. So people keep thinking he dies in this movie like 4 times, and they're like, "He's alive? Oh, he's alive?"
That's a cool nod to that, yeah.
I think that was cool. I'm pretty sure they did that on purpose, because I was just like, that's actually pretty cool, because Flash Gordon is like, he's literally just the total average man. Like the scene when like Queen's singing like, like, "You can never make a mistake," and I'm just like, we're not watching
Savior
the
of the
movie.
universe.
We're not watching. I thought he was gonna. I was like, where's like the special effects, or where's like the I don't train any at all, but I'm just good at everything I do? No, he's totally just an average guy who got stuck in a spaceship, and he's got a good heart.
Totally. And then even as like a football player, like he's supposed to be this, hot shot quarterback, and then he does more running and, diving into the
He's
soldiers.
A freaking linebacker more than a quarterback.
Than a quarterback. So it's like,
but he doesn't fight. He doesn't fight until Zarkov throws him that like sort of like football, and he's like, "Oh, I know what to do here." And then
and then it looks like rugby at that point.
Oh man, that's probably why English people like it. They're like, "Oh, rugby right here."
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's bad, but in the best of ways. Yeah, I agree though.
Yes.
Like Voltan, at first I was really annoyed by him, but I totally grew to. He's, I think, one of the best. I think he's the best hero in the movie, and then Clytus is, I think, is the best villain in the movie. And
oh yeah, he's super awesome. But that being said, Max von Sydow, he's just awesome. Like he does a great job. So typical classic villain, but he nails it. And then, but really, what's his face? The guy who plays, Clytus.
Yeah.
He's the perfect
Peter Wingate. Yeah,
Wingate, perfect side villain, the perfect henchman to the main villain.
Wingard, so, Peter Wingard. Yeah, such a snaky type of character.
Yeah, very very good though.
He was like totally reminded me of like Wormtongue and then Hiss from Robin Hood, but like super dark and maniacal. And
oh yeah.
The thing I thought was cool too was like, wasn't it Princess Aura? Like she's the daughter of Ming, and so when they capture her and they're like, Clytus is like, "I know who the traitor is, but will you give me permission to do whatever I need to do to her to get the information to the person to get the information?" And Ming's like, "Go." And so then like when they were torturing her, and then Clytus is like, "Oh, you want to talk to your father? Sure." And then Ming shows up, and then he's totally just like cold. I thought they were gonna have a little bit of like, "Oh, that's my daughter, but you betrayed me." Nope, not at all. He's like, "What's for lunch?" Like cold.
Yeah.
And yeah, Max von Sydow though, he does a good job. He's unrecognizable in this movie, and that's a compliment. Yeah, like that's a compliment to the makeup team as well.
That's true. That's true.
All right, we're running a little long here. We should probably get into our final thoughts. Anything else you want to say before we roll into our final verdicts?
I don't know, man. There are a lot of good lines in this that are very quotable from this movie. Yeah, it's fun. Definitely go check it out.
Well, you look great. I mean it. It's the eye makeup. I'll have to remember it when I wake up.
Right? So random. And then like the little floating droid that's kind of throughout the movie. It shows up and Flash is about to smash it or kill it, and I think it's Dale stops him. Right. And then he rolls up and says, "Good job, Flash. You've saved Earth. Have a nice day."
Have a nice day. Yeah.
It's just okay. That's
oh yeah.
Wow.
And then like Prince Baron at the one part, he like rolls into he's starting to shoot at some people, and the way that these space people, he just rolls in there. He's like, freeze, and
right.
He's using like Earth lingo.
Right.
And it's bad.
So many mixed dialogue, mixed signals. Yeah, it is a hot dumpster fire.
Oh yeah,
but it's worth watching.
Oh
okay.
Yeah. One last thing that I wanted to say before is actually in the comics, Flash was a polo player, but that was a way less popular sport by 1980, so they changed him to be a football player. So
that's probably a good move. It didn't really work in the movie, but you know.
I would have probably enjoyed it better if he was a polo player. At least to be riding horses. Anyways, all right. So let's go into final verdicts then. Do you think that it was successful, and did it have an impact when it was released?
So my initial thought was just you watch the movie, and then I knew loosely that it didn't do well, so I gave it a D. But at the same time, it did all right for a few weeks, and there was some decent reviews, even though it fell off pretty quick. So I don't know, man. I'm either a D+ or a C-, and C- might be a little too generous, but it kind of quickly became sort of a cult classic. Like I think once it made it to VHS, it kind of found its audience a little better, maybe. But I don't know. It's somewhere in there, D+, C-, I think.
Yeah. I feel like this is almost a reverse John Carter situation, where John Carter was a better movie than the trailers led to believe, and that movie bombed. And I feel like Flash Gordon, the trailer was better than the actual movie, and the movie bombed. So you mean
DC made this movie? I didn't know.
Feels like it.
Burn.
Ooh, ain't gonna hit that $1 billion mark, DC. I mean, I guess Aquaman did, but that's because everybody likes Jason Momoa. Anyways, so I'm gonna give it a shoot. Honestly, I'm gonna give it an F for did it hit it when it was coming straight out, because it didn't do it was supposed to be the next Star Wars. It lost money on this. They didn't know what they were doing. It was conflicted with if they were gonna be. I mean, the fact that they didn't have an ending for the movie, and just the way they ended it is like, now it's iconic, but at that time it was like. I would be so mad if I was a fan of Flash Gordon and I watched that movie back in the day.
Yeah.
So
that would have been tough.
Absolutely. How relevant is it today?
So based on its cult status, I don't know. I landed on a C. I don't know that it's that big, but that's just kind of the vibe I was getting.
Right.
I don't know. No, I wasn't really sure where to peg it.
I'd give it
in its status now.
I give it a C as well, because I don't know a lot of people that have actually seen this movie, but the people that have seen this movie most of the time are like diehard fans of this movie.
Right.
And so it's definitely cult classic, but in the large spectrum, is it like as influential as Star Wars still is and stuff? Yeah, I gave it a C. That's a good idea. Okay, personal enjoyment.
Well, like I said earlier, I really enjoyed this movie, and I have a lot of good memories of watching it with a group, and it was a little bit harder by myself. So unfortunately, I gave it a C- for watching it by myself. But yet, if I would have watched it with, even if you and I watched it together live, it would have gone up. I would have given it a B at that point. But by myself, I gave it a C.
Man, we're really in sync on this movie. I was so conflicted with it. I wanted to love this movie so much.
Right.
And I just couldn't, because it's just, like you said, it's so slow in different parts, and it couldn't decide if it wanted to be serious or just dedicate itself to campy. So, yeah, I give it a C as well. It's a great party film, but me watching it personally, again, by myself or whatever, I don't know if I'd watch it again. But if I was hanging out with
but you knew if a group was watching it, you absolutely, let's go watch it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I had so much fun. I totally get why some people love this movie. Like, I totally get it. This movie is a prime cult classic. So I think we already know the answer to this question, but is it a midnight watch?
Yeah, I can't say that it is. It's a no for me.
Yeah, it's a no for me either. Unfortunately, I literally went in watching this movie expecting it to be like, this is a new midnight watch for me, and I was, Gordon is dead on sight. He's not alive. Gordon's alive.
He's not.
Oh, by the way, speaking of, you said ray guns at the beginning. Was there actually? Oh yeah, duh. No, there's ray guns all over the place.
They're probably laser guns. I don't know.
I like it.
That's just. I was thinking super old timey. Like in the 30s, they probably called them ray guns.
Like atomic ray guns or stuff like that. Yeah,
I'm sure they didn't
sense.
call them laser guns.
I'm sure after Star Wars though, then they were like, yeah, lasers. Oh, by the way, I will say this though, the defenses of the castle at the end, they're like, hey, we should shoot down that person. There's just like lasers going everywhere. Yeah. You're like, is this a Skrillex concert? It was just like, anyway, Flash Gordon is a heck of a pilot, apparently.
Yeah, he is. For a guy that didn't quite have his pilot's license. I mean, there's the natural skill right there.
Natural skill. Absolutely. Right. Yeah. If you got a heart of gold and natural skill, you're going to stay alive in Mongo.
Right.
Okay. Well, I think that's about it for tonight. If you wanted to check out this movie, I had to rent this movie. What about you? I got it from Amazon Prime for $4.
Same here.
Yeah. You can rent it pretty much, I think, anywhere. I tried to find it where it was like included in, but apparently it wasn't. Anyways, special thanks to our sound producer, Jake Colvin. If you guys had as much fun as we did on this episode, we'd love it if you shared it with your family, friends, and anyone you think would like it.
Please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. We're found on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and many other platforms. Also, we'd love it if you visit our Instagram or Facebook page and join the conversation on what is your midnight watch. You can directly reach us at the Midnight Watch Podcast at gmail.com.
Okay, everyone, you have a fantastic week. And as always, let's team up and keep up the watch.